Hello guys, TavHD here and welcome back to another video, and today we will be doing a quick look and comparison between the fingerprint sensor on this device, which is my iPhone 8 Plus, as well as the ultrasonic fingerprint scanner on this, my Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus. So to start with, we'll discuss the newest of the two devices, which of course is the S20 Plus. This uses the ultrasonic technology which was developed by Qualcomm, and it uses sound waves that bounce off your skin which allow the sensor to register the unique pattern of your fingerprint, and then from that it can recognise who is touching the phone and then let you in if you are the authorised person who's been set up with it. Now there's been lots of reports about this scanner saying that it's slow and not accurate, and it's just not as good as the optical scanners found in some other phones. Now this is the same scanner found in last year's S10 and Note 10 series, and no improvements have been made since then, even though Samsung has received quite a lot of complaints by a lot of different people. Now moving on to the iPhone here, this uses the second generation Touch ID scanner, and Apple claims that this is up to 2 times faster than the first generation, which was introduced in the iPhone 5S. The home button on this is made out of sapphire crystal, which is one of the clearest, hardest materials available according to Apple. Whether that's true or not, I'm not exactly sure. And this technology is rather complex, but simply it uses capacitive touch to take a high resolution image from the small sections of fingerprint put onto the scanner, and then it can compare that to what it knows should be the correct person trying to unlock the device. So now that we've just discussed how these things work, let's see how they actually work in the real world. So what I've done is just reset up my fingerprints on it so they both have a nice new idea of what my fingerprints look like. So of course on the iPhone you've just got to put your finger on the home button, press it once, and then it unlocks. And on the S20 Plus, all I need to do is get my finger, hold it down, and there we go, no match. Try again, and there we go, we are in. So now let's just do this a few times at a different angle on the different devices and just see which one is better. So first let's take a look at the iPhone 8 Plus, since this one is apparently a better scanner. So of course it is embedded in the home button here, and I quite like this because it's easy to know where you're meant to position your finger. On the S20 it can be difficult because all it does is display a little image on the screen, then you've got to line your finger up with that. So this is easier if you're not looking at what you're doing. You can just feel where the dip is, press it, and then get in. So this is, in my opinion, easier to use. Now let's try it from different angles. So sideways, of course it works as well, but it doesn't just know the tip, it knows a bit further down my finger as well, because when you set it up it asks you to move your finger around a bit. If I put my finger a little bit further down on, maybe that's a bit too far, but eventually it does get it. And it is quite hot today, so I am a little bit sweaty, so that does not help. That is something that these scanners aren't too good with. If your fingers are wet or sweaty, they will most of the time just not work at all. But this is a fairly quick sensor, so if I just click it, in we are, just like that. And of course it works with up to 5 fingers set up, so on my other hand here we're in as well. Okay, so here's the Galaxy S20 Plus, and as I was saying earlier, it is hard to know where the scanner is. It is embedded under the screen, which is more convenient probably in a way than it being on the back like it was on previous phones, because on the back you've kind of got to reach around a bit to try and find where the sensor is. So I think that this is probably more easy to try and find, but it's still not very easy. So from the always on display here, I can just put my finger on where the little image is, like that, and it will let me in. Now sometimes it can let me in really quickly. Let's try this. Just like that. And that's if I press on really hard. But if I'm not as hard and just rest my finger on it, it takes a little bit longer. So depending on how hard you press, it does unlock quicker. So of course this can have lots of fingers set up as well. Use a different one here, and it lets me in. But this one, I think from my opinion, is less reliable than the iPhone. I've not had this phone very long, but I've probably had more failed attempts at logging in than I ever have done on the iPhone, so yeah, that isn't very good really. And I think it's all to do with the angle and the pressure. So if I do this a little bit out of place, it just says no match, because it is quite hard to line up there. It actually worked. I'm not sure how that worked, and then other times it doesn't, but yeah, it is fairly unreliable. Let's try it with my thumb. No match. Press harder, and there we go, it let me in. So you do have to press pretty hard with this, but that means if you're holding it in one hand, it can be quite hard. Let's try this, because your thumb automatically goes on a sort of angle, and then of course that doesn't let you in, so you've got to try and line your thumb up perfectly, then press hard, and then it lets you in. So I think that this has its benefits. It's easier than it being on the back, I suppose, and it's better than not having it at all, like the new iPhones. But I think that overall, the Touch ID sensor on this iPhone is just easier to locate. It's easier to make sure that your finger is lined up correctly, and yet overall, I do prefer that. And I would say that it probably is a little bit quicker, and you don't have to press on quite as hard. So yeah, I do prefer the sensor on the iPhone, but then again it does require quite a lot of room, so that does eat into your screen real estate. So overall, the experience of unlocking is better on the iPhone, but the overall phone experience as a whole is better on the Galaxy, in my opinion, as it also does have facial recognition. It's not as secure as Face ID or as clever. It basically just looks at an image instead of using all those fancy things that Face ID uses, but it works just fine, and most of the time that is just as quick as me getting my finger and putting it on the home button on the iPhone. So I think that that is pretty much it for this video. My conclusion is that Touch ID is quicker and more reliable, but then it does take up more room, and I think that the one on the S20 is nice to have, even though it isn't perfect. I think that Samsung should have gone with one of the optical sensors, or somehow improved this. They've had more than a year, they've had complaints, but yeah, they've just not done anything about it. I don't know why that is. Maybe with the Note 20 that's coming out soon they will improve it in some way, but who knows. So thank you for watching this video. Hopefully it was interesting in some way, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.